I like reading books. Do you like reading books? Because I like reading books. Anyway, you're here because you like reading books. And great! We got a nice video here for you today. And if you aren't, get out. I'm joking. You obviously probably clicked since you're curious, which is great. You're learning something new today for sure. Unless you know what we're talking about already. Right. Anyway, we're going to be talking about one of the best authors from the Victorian period. Now, who is that author, you ask? Well, that would be Rudyard Kipling. Kipling, I mean. Sorry, my speech was off a bit. So, for those of you who don't know about this guy, he was quite the writer back in his day. He wrote such classics such as, hold on. Ah, of course, he wrote such classics like The Light That Failed, Captain's Courageous, and wrote quite a lot of poems during his tenure. Now, it would probably be a good idea to start off with his early life and... What? Like, what? You say I'm missing one? You even got a movie from Disney? Well, I mean... Wait! Oh! Oh, that's right! The Jungle Book! I almost forgot. Well, we'll get to that and a few other books later. Anyway, let's get started. How about you sit down somewhere and relax? Take a nice deep breath and just listen. Because we're going to be here for a while. Now then, Joseph Rudyard Kipling, that's his first name, was born on December 10, 1865 in Bombay, now Mumbai, India, with his parents being John Lockwood Kipling and Alice MacDonald. Now, with how well Rudyard would become in the future, I'm sure he had a good childhood, right? He was taken to England by his parents by the age of 6. Ouch. That kind of hurts. Oh, and he was left out of foster home for 5 years. Jeez. The poor kid not only left his home, but then was left by his parents? Oof, that's awful. Now, look, if all of this happened to a young Rudyard Kipling, these events would drive him to write a poem later called Baba Black Sheep in 1888, based on the horrific events he dealt with during these years. And you may be asking yourself, dude, that's it? That's all he did in retaliation that has happened in his life at that point? And to that, I say, yes, of course he did that. Look, as we humans deal with something or a variety of things that are going to hurt us and impact us in a negative way, it may get to the point where we find ourselves as a failure. In retaliation, humans usually try to find ways to get away from this event and try to find ways to make this event just become forgettable. Now, the definition of this has gone through many terms through the years, but as a way to understand in our very modern society, I decided on one word to describe this: copium. Now, to think if copium is good or bad is up to you, but here's how I see it. There are two kinds of copium: the good kind and the bad kind. We'll just leave it at that. And back to Rudyard Kipling. You see, Rudyard Kipling did the good kind, and as a matter of fact, realized the events going on around him, which is why he wrote the poem. Now I can argue some of you saying yet again, dude, these events do sound horrible. Perhaps he could have done a little more. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't take that. You know what? I would agree. But the way Rudyard Kipling took the hate, he really just took it in stride. He was honestly a chill guy. I respect that. And honestly, I do the same thing. There's other ways to let out your anger than choose violence. Well, at least in most cases. Anyhow, Kipling would go to the United Services College at Westward Ho, North Devon, which was a newborn school at the time. And with the cruelty happening at him, what does he do? Write something else. This time called Stocky & Co., featuring related stories of his time at the boarding school. Readers know how brutal and cruel his words were in his collection. This book was made, which many considered the golden years of Rudyard Kipling. As a matter of fact, let's turn back the clock for a bit. Only a little though, as in 1888, he would return to India. As he observed the land of India, it gains his connection to his early childhood, in which he filled journals with those prose sketches and light verses. He would use these as a publishing short stories for years to come, like Plain Tales from the Hills and The Phantom Rickshaw. It was thanks to the Sand Foundation writing these short stories that Kipling would actually write full-blown novels. Oh yeah, now we're getting to the thick of it. No! Get that out of here! We're not doing this today. Get this off my screen! God, the music too! Finally, Now, please put some music that, oh, I don't know, set the mood a bit. I guess that'll work. I mean, huh? I don't understand what this has to do with. Oh, I almost forgot. So before Kipling wrote write novels, he got married in 1892 to Caroline Bellister, who was a sister of Wolcott Bellister, an American publisher and writer, which Kipling collaborated with him, which the novel was called the Nanaka. I think that's how it's pronounced. That same year, they would move to, you guessed it, the United States, in which they settled in Vermont on Mrs. Kipling's property in Vermont. Alright, now that we got that quick bit out of the way, now we can set the mood. Well, this isn't quite from the time period, but you know what? I like it. Alright, well, let's get into some of his prime books, and honestly, I think it would be right to start off with his first novel, The Light That Failed, published in 1890. The Light That Failed is basically about a man named Dick. Look, it's his first novel, just bear with me here. He's a war artist who has a love for a childhood friend named Maisel and is slowly going into a descent of blindness. That's basically all you really need to know. I won't go into the whole book here. We don't want to spoil anything, but I will go through some reviews of the book. The book was poorly received and criticized by most reviewers at the time. It is understandable, though. It was Kipling's first novel that he wrote, and going from writing short stories and poems to a full-fledged novel is quite the jump. I mean, it's uncommon for the first thing you put out to be considered the best one. Well, most of the time. Moving on to our second novel is Captain Courageous, written in 1897. No, I know what you're saying. Hey, didn't we skip a certain book? Well, yes, but I say we leave the most impactful for last. Anyway, this time it's about a 15-year-old boy named Harvey Sheen Jr., who is quite spoiled, in which he finds himself in the process of almost drowning, and, honestly, probably karma for the spoiled boy he is. Except, he would get saved by a Portuguese fisherman, who is actually a part of a crew. He would blame their captain for stealing his money. Wait? Huh? So, look, he just got saved, and he wants to complain about his money? Come on, man, they ought to whoop his smart... Oh, they did. Nice. Oh yeah, even though he was kind of being a jerk to him, they decided to let him join. You know what? Good for him. I mean, maybe he could finally learn some maturity by being in his crew. Now, yet again, I won't get more into it. Want to spoil everything, Anyway, if we look at reviews around the time, I couldn't find anything. I mean, even Wikipedia didn't have nothing to review around the time. I mean, of course they wouldn't, because I obviously didn't use Wikipedia, and didn't even look in the first place. I actually used a real source to get my answer. I looked at Google reviews. Yep. They said it was good, all the 5 stars. Yep, that sounds like a good book to me. Oh wait, it has a 79% overall. Now, there may be different opinions around this book. So at the end of the day, it's up to you to form your own opinion, along with the previous book. Without ado, it's time to finally get to our last book, and our quite most impactful one of any of your Kipling books. That's right, the one and only The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book was published in 1894, and it features different stories based off of the jungle. There are a variety of different characters, but the most prominent one, at least in the first few chapters, is Mowgli. No, not you. We'll get to you in a bit. The book follows the boy, Mowgli, who is taken into care by wolves. He would meet other animals like Baloo the bear and Bagheera the black panther, while learning the world around him and the Long of the Jungle. This Long of the Jungle is probably this moral code that all the animals must follow, including Mowgli in this case. And, like always, that's the short description. You already know, it's spoiler free here. Now that you have a basis, just how well received it was, and you know what? How much of this book was an influence? Well, to say this book had an influence is an understatement. The book was received in a positive light, and it still does to this very day. Rudyard Kipling knocked it out of the park with this one. As a matter of fact, it was so good that tons of things were transcended from the original book. Hey, you want to know a fun fact? Brother Ben Powell, founder of the Boy Scouts, is actually friends with Rudyard Kipling. He personally went to him and asked if he could use the principles in the book for some basis in the scouting movement. I find it interesting, and I would know myself. Now, of course, we would get an adaptation by Disney Animations themselves. Oh man, they would make an animated adaptation of The Jungle Book in 1967, a little after 7 decades the original book came out. And I and many others can say it was a great movie. Now, does it adapt the original book well? Actually, it does a nice job going through some of the original stories with Mowgli and calling the characters by the original names themselves. Other than that, the obvious musicals like you would expect from any Disney film, and personally, I'm not complaining. They're bangers in their own right. I say it's a well-adapted movie, especially considering we get a sequel. Now, it's just amazing how many adaptations and inspirations came from this one book. Personally, I think I would consider this Rudyard Kipling's greatest achievement as a writer. I mean, the book is still remembered to this day and considered a classic. All these images are because of how they were inspired by the Jungle Book. I mean, it was just that great. Uh, you gonna move on or wait? Hold on, is that? No, I mean, I know the Jungle Book really influenced adaptation we made, but uh, wow, well, it is a full-fledged anime, and it started from a manga too. Wow, you learn something new every day, huh? Well, add that on the list. Now, I think that's enough novels by Rudyard Kipling to go through. I mean, I just pointed to the tip of the iceberg, but I've been yapping for quite a while now, and I should really wrap this up. Anywho, I think we should take a look at Rudyard Kipling's past. On January 18th, 1936, at the age of 70, Rudyard Kipling would pass away. By then, he had moved back to England, made plenty more novels, short stories, and poems, won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1907, witnessed the First World War, got on Time magazine, met with famous people, and much more. Rudyard Kipling should be remembered for his great works in literature, and also for inspiring future generations with his works. His literature will forever be cherished for the great and smart man that he was. Well, alright, that's really all I have left. So as I said before, go ahead and check out them yourself if you're interested. Personally, as a reader, that I am, I think they're worth checking out. Each book is different than the other, and each has its own purpose. This includes the book I didn't even mention, which, there's a ton of them, so you can check those out as well if you want to. So, in conclusion, a good way to cope is to notice the problem and find an efficient way to deal with it. Oh yeah, and don't actually try to be friends with a bear. They'll maul you. With that, peace, and see you later.